Now we have somebody from Novartis who monitors clinical trials, has trained our staff on how to do clinical research monitoring, which is extremely expensive. And we have other sort of defectors from the pharmaceutical industry who are coming to help us in our drug development. Some anonymously. There's a woman who wrote an article about data management in this issue of the MAPS bulletin that's up on the website, and she wasn't comfortable putting her name or her pharmaceutical company affiliation down, but we're getting more professionalized. And basically for the next 2 years, we're going to be doing a series of what's called phase 2 pilot studies. And we have ones going on right now in Switzerland and Israel. The Swiss study is about half done. The Israel study is just beginning. We're starting a study. It's before an institutional review board in Canada. And the big dream there is that there's a possibility that we might be able to get some police officers from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police who were traumatized as in their jobs, working as police officers, into the study. So again, we're trying to break down these stereotypes of who does these drugs. And it's for everybody. It's for the mainstream. It's not for this counterculture. We are not a counterculture. We are trying to be integrated. We're like the scouts who were sent out to check something out. We've come back, we've got some really good information, and now we want to have the whole tribe sort of go in this direction. And we can do it. So in addition to trying to develop our treatment manual, develop our training program, and replicate our results, we're also sort of living out the big dream. So we're trying to, I call it psychedelic diplomacy. So I've just been in Amman, Jordan, and I've met with various political officials there. We're working with a Jordanian military psychiatrist, and so we're hoping to start a PTSD study in Jordan. We have other projects in Spain and France and possibly in Portugal. So that we're internationalizing it so that if there is a backlash in any one of these countries, we'll be able to continue in other countries. It's hard to say what will happen in November here in the United States, so we really have to have this international strategy. And then once we've got this data, then we go to the FDA and we say, how do we design these phase 3 studies? What kind of studies will you accept as convincing proof of safety and efficacy? And so I think that that'll probably take place around 2 years from now. Now, the whole other line that we're trying to do, and Roland talked about it, is working with people that are dying. And that's very, very important, but I think that it's not likely to be the high priority, the top priority that makes it through the FDA first. First off, I think most psychiatrists, or a lot of them, are scared of LSD, scared of psilocybin, scared of taking those drugs themselves, and they're willing to try MDMA in order to be more effective therapists. But the other problem is that we have to treat disease. I mean, there is a whole parallel track which is trying to legitimize the religious use of these drugs, which is very, very important. But religious use is very close to drug legalization. What the government has tried to do is say, if you're a member of the Native American Church and you have permission to use peyote, you have to be a Native American. So we have a situation where we have, from the federal government's perspective, they've limited a religion to people from a certain race. Never happened before. It's outrageous. But that's how they're trying to pocket, to keep it in this isolated pocket. Similarly with the União de Vegetal, which is approved in the Ayahuasca Church. It's a very small group. The Santo Daime has just sued the DEA. They want to get authorized as well. But what about those of us who are allergic to religion and allergic to sort of orthodoxies? Why can't we have our own spiritual experiences just in the Santa Cruz Mountains on mushrooms or wherever? We should. So I think that the religious use and the research into the religious use is very important, but it is so threatening because it is so next to this idea of legalization and personal human rights for everybody to have this direct access to spirituality that I don't see that as also being the one that breaks the barrier. And then there are efforts to work on drug decriminalization, drug legalization. And I think that that will move in parallel also. But I think that the talk that Alex and Allison gave this morning about what do you tell the kids, it's really instructive. And that's where really this whole war is being waged. If you look at how prohibition ended by women, by mothers getting together and saying that prohibition was more dangerous to their kids than alcohol. So it was the Women's Christian Temperance Union that helped bring about prohibition in the first place. And then it was the largest group of people that ended up stopping prohibition was this group of women. And we don't see that right now. So when you think about parents groups who have something to do with drugs, they're almost always parents groups who are pro-drug war. So that our movement is not mature yet, or the legalization movement is not mature yet, because there really is not this organized group of parents, vocal, strong, saying the drug war is more dangerous than our kids. So I think that there's a good chance that the medical use will be the one that both gives us the opportunity to counteract the incredible propaganda that has demonized these drugs, and will appeal to people on the basis of their need, on the basis of their need for healing. And so I'm not clear that that's right. So I'm very supportive of people that are working on legalization, people that are working on religious use. I just felt that my particular point of leverage was most focused by working on the medical use. And I think that when we talk about people that are dying, trying to make it into a disease, trying to show that the existential healing that people can go through with psychedelics and get more peaceful about their death, whether that maps onto the traditional measures of anxiety is not clear yet. That's what these studies, pilot studies in that area are trying to do. So we're probably a year or so behind the MDMA PTSD research with the work with the people that are dying. And it's not clear to me that that's going to work out at all. It may. It's really important to show that we can have this helpful effect. But I think that right now, MDMA PTSD is the one. Now, I had initially thought that I want to have the MDMA studies done, the phase 2 studies done for MDMA, for PTSD, and the phase 2 studies done for psychedelics, for end-of-life anxiety, and then we go to the funders and say, now look at the data, now let's figure out which is best. And we had our recent MAPS board meeting, and we decided that that's not necessary anymore, that the MDMA PTSD stuff is so good and so strong that it justifies going forward full steam ahead. So that's where we're at. We're proliferating all these pilot studies, and we'd like to encourage, it can only be done with all of us working together, so I do encourage you to consider becoming a MAPS member. There was one week a couple of years ago where we got a $250,000 check in the mail, and a drug war prisoner sent us 8 stamps. And I felt that each of those donations was equally important. That somebody who was in jail for selling LSD would send us 8 stamps in hopes that somehow or other he would be able to help out. Meant as much to me as a billionaire sending us $250,000. So I think everybody can do their part. It doesn't matter how big, how small, but I think working together, we're a very strong community. We're not like the zealots up on top of Masada, and society needs what we have to offer, and it's incredibly exciting to be able to work on this. This work is its own reward. It's so beautiful to work with people as they open up. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you all for attending and being here and joining together and making us feel strong as a community. And now we'll open it up to questions.